Everyone, welcome back to FSi DFS. Apologies for missing some videos this week. Confusion, honestly, on who was going to be making the video. That's honestly what happened. But we're back. We figured we'll give you a Saturday breakdown because we missed a couple of those days. Please hit that subscribe button. We are 22 away from the 5,000 subscriber goal. It really would mean a lot to us, so please hit that subscribe button. If you're not, 63% of the viewers are not subscribed. We get all the analytics and everything through YouTube. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. It does help us out in providing more content. This early slate, main slate, what are we calling it? It's the 7-game slate on June 15th. It's pretty devoid of really exciting pitching options. Not a single pitcher has a strikeout prop over 5.5. There's many that are at 5.5, but I don't even think any of them are even juiced to the over. So it's going to be tough to find some ceiling guys in terms of upside and strikeout rates. And you would think that with the lack of pitching, it would lead to, there's going to be so many bats I'm going to be interested in. There's kind of not at the same time. It's a lot of offenses that struggle or have been struggling, or you're just not really interested in playing because the good teams are facing off against the better pitchers. You got, Philadelphia against Grayson Rodriguez and Houston against Flaherty. Do you want to really be excited to play the Mets or San Diego? No, not really. We'll break down the bats once we get there. But we'll start off with the pitching here. I do have the sheet. I'll pull that up in a little bit. But right up at the top, we got Verlander and Grayson Rodriguez. I'm going to be picking Rodriguez over Verlander. If I had to pick between the two, I'm going to go with Rodriguez here. This guy has just been fantastic ever since his return, and honestly, he's been providing a very solid floor. The ceiling games are not as frequent as we would like them to be, but he certainly still has the capability of having those ceiling games. You can see he had 10 strikeouts a couple of starts ago, allowed 4 earned runs, so kind of neutralized a lot of his upside that he was capable of getting, but tougher matchup against Philadelphia. That's the kind of hesitation towards it. However, Baltimore and Philadelphia, they just played a 12 inning game last night. I think it was 11 inning game last night. And so wouldn't shock me if, like Baltimore used Kimbrel, they used Cano through their bullpen. So it wouldn't shock me if they want Grayson Rodriguez to go maybe an inning extra here today, just to give the bullpen a little bit of relief after that extra inning game that, chewed up a lot of their bullpen. On a similar side of that, I'm not going to get there yet because that's talking about the Baltimore bats. We'll talk about that once we get to the bats. But I'm going to take Rodriguez over Verlander. Verlander, decent matchup facing off against Detroit, but 9.9K for a guy who, I don't know, I don't trust yet. I feel like the age is getting to him, or maybe that's just like a preconceived notion I have in my head that I just don't trust him coming off of the injury and whatnot, but I don't. I would much rather take Grayson Rodriguez, or I would even much more rather take Jack Flaherty, who's $1,000 cheaper facing off against Houston. So right up here at the top, you can see Grayson Rodriguez and then Verlander. Mid-tier, Flaherty, and then there's a big gap. I feel like Flaherty really rises to the top once you get here. Once you get to the salary tier in the 8K range, facing off against Houston. It's happened. I'm not scared of Houston anymore offensively. They've just struggled and been disappointing all season long. And Flaherty, he has been absolutely electric. You can see he's got 82 strikeouts in just 60 innings in his past 10 starts, routinely going 7 or more strikeouts. But I do want to say Houston is a low strikeout team. I mentioned it earlier. Nobody has a strikeout prop over 5.5. Jack Flaherty, he's one of the guys that's at 5.5. So Vegas isn't really expecting one of these 7 to 14. He's not going to get 14 strikeout performances. So temper your expectations quite a little bit, but I do think that getting a little bit of a discount because facing off against Houston, a lower strikeout team, is appealing for sure. It'll get you a little bit better bats. So you can see I'll definitely take Flaherty even over a guy like Verlander. Then I think there's a pretty big gap before you get to like Morton, Abbott, and Sandoval. Am I excited about any of those guys in the mid-tier? Not really. Not really at all. Abbott's been pretty solid. I will give him that, especially over his past 10 starts. So you see, 1, 2, 3 starts with allowing more than 2 earned runs. That's pretty solid. But I don't know. The game against Milwaukee has actually one of the higher implied run totals on the entire board. So it's really intriguing. Vegas is kind of expecting Andrew Abbott and then the Cincinnati bullpen following, obviously, to struggle quite a bit. He's also seen his salary increase a little bit. So like when you're looking at Abbott and realizing that you have a guy like Flaherty who's only $700 more, I'm going to be taking Flaherty 99 out of 100 times in that spot. Morton, he's been up and down lately. If you've been watching these videos for years, you know that Charlie Morton to me is just very, he's there, he's gonna go out, he's gonna do his work. He's never really gonna give you an absolutely like blow down the doors, break the slate kind of pitching performance. He has in the past. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know. I hate playing Charlie Morton. I don't remember the last time I have played Charlie Morton, to be completely honest. And then Sandoval facing off against San Francisco. Again, kind of similar to Morton. He's been a roller coaster of a ride. He's not a fade by any means. Great ballpark bump playing in San Francisco. But am I excited about it? No, not really. And then going on into the cheap tier, and Pepio, we are going to put as our favorite pitcher. Tough matchup against Atlanta. Is it? I don't know. Atlanta, their offense has been so bad. They've actually, looking at the numbers, they've been one of the worst offenses in the entire league. I mean, we're comparing them to the offenses of Colorado and the White Sox and Oakland. Like, they've been terrible. And then last night, Michael Harris, he's out. He's injured. He's on the IL. So another top bat that they're losing on top of Acuna. And all of a sudden, this Atlanta offense just should not be scaring you really much more at all. However, you can see I have them here towards the top. I still think that they could be a really intriguing play, especially I feel like I maybe should put them more into like the GPP category. Atlanta has the highest implied run total on the board. Shocking. I think a lot of it maybe comes from the Tampa Bay bullpen, who historically we viewed as like elite and just incredible. Complete opposite this season. That Tampa Bay bullpen has really struggled. So Pepio, he's not a guy who's going to be chewing up 6-7 innings. But I still think that Atlanta, intriguing play on the bats. But Pepio, intriguing play if you are going down into this cheap tier. Because everybody else, I don't know, not much interest. Wynn, I would probably have the most interest after that, facing off against the Angels. A decent matchup. He's really been struggling the past couple of starts, but when you look at the matchups, he's faced off against Philadelphia, Coors Field, the Dodgers, and then Texas. That's like murderer's row of offenses. Texas, they've been struggling a little bit, and Colorado's not good, but Coors Field. It's Coors Field. But take out those, and honestly, he's been very, very solid before that. So, do I like that play? No. Is it sub 6K? Yeah, I'm going to have a lot more interest because he's sub 6K facing off against a bad team. And that's kind of the deal with like Rodgers and Hers as well. Like, they're both so cheap, and they're both, not facing off against offenses that I'm like, woo, go play these guys. I definitely have more interest in the Washington bats than Miami. So let's head down here, though, towards the bats. You can see Baltimore, they're going to be my top team. Facing off against Walker. Walker just allows a lot of contact. He allows a lot of hard contact. And kind of, I was sort of hinting towards it when I was talking about, Grayson Rodriguez needing to go a little bit longer because the bullpens are a little bit taxed for these two teams. They're even more taxed for Philadelphia because prior to that 11-inning game that they had yesterday, they had Aaron Nola just getting absolutely blown up in his start. Aaron Nola only went 3.2 innings, so they used a lot of their bullpen and their long relief in that game, and then they had the extra innings game. this Philly bullpen is taxed. They need some rest. I wouldn't shock if they keep Walker in there longer than they want him to be in there. And if Walker's struggling, I wouldn't shock me if, they just kind of, come on, like, I want to just get us through this inning, finish it off. So I really do like the Baltimore bats and think that they can get there. Obviously, Gunnar Henderson, he's going to be the top guy that you would be targeting in this lineup. 6.3K, it's just justifiable for sure. But they also have cheaper guys, especially lefties, O'Hearn, who I would be having interest in. I'd probably go Henderson, then O'Hearn, then debate between Mullins or Santander. If you need the savings, you can obviously go into Mullins. Crazy steal. Did you guys see, if you haven't, and this is going away from the video, try to find a clip from the ending of last night's 10th inning for this game last night. Wild pitch, goes to the backstop. Mullins is on third base. 2 outs. He breaks for home. The ball bounces off the backstop, right back to the catcher. He turns around, play at the plate. Umpire calls him out. Game over. They go to review. He's called. It was wild. So really electric stuff. So Baltimore is my number one. Atlanta, I think it's a big gap. And then Atlanta, like I mentioned, could be intriguing just because if, indeed Pepio is seeing some ownership, definitely going to have more interest in Atlanta. But because if Pepio goes out and then they get to face that Tampa Bay bullpen, and I don't expect many people to be playing Atlanta just because of the injuries that they have and just how bad they have been offensively. But I don't know. It's there. We got years of proven data. It's there that these guys are good and they can't hit the ball. San Diego and Tampa Bay rounding that out. Over into the GPP, Cincinnati. Cincinnati really, really struggles against pitchers that strike out and have higher strikeout rates. They're facing off against Wilson for Milwaukee. Wilson, one of the lower strikeout rates on the entire board. So it's going to make me have a lot more interest in Cincinnati because their one kryptonite to their bats is kind of neutralized. Wilson's not going to be going out there and striking out 6-7 pitchers. I don't even think he's going to be able to strike out 5 pitchers. But again, Cincinnati, they strike out so much, so maybe he can get there. But with Cincinnati, they have a lot of left-handed bats that I would have interest in facing off against Wilson. Fraley, he would be my first option if I was going with a larger Cincinnati stack, just because of the price discount that we are getting. He's going to be batting in the heart of the order. But De La Cruz, Friedel, they have Benson, Hurtubise, these are all guys who are projected to be in the lineup and we are going to have interest in just because of the power and upside that they can bring, but also the stolen base upside that they bring. They're just a nice GPP lineup in terms of they have power, they have stolen base upside, but they also have no floor whatsoever because they strike out so much. So it's a great GPP team. Going over to the cheap tier, Washington. I mentioned how Washington, Miami, poor offenses, but they're facing off against 2 very poor pitchers at the same time. Going to have a little bit more interest in Washington facing off against Rogers. Rogers, he walks a lot of guys. He allows a lot of hard contact. Washington, they're very cheap overall. Let me pull up their salaries here. Yeah. 3 guys priced above 3.9K. Lefties, righties, I don't care. I know Washington, a lot of their main guys are left-handed bats, but I don't think that really even comes into play in terms of facing off against the Rogers. I'm going to have some interest in them. I have more interest in them compared to Miami because Miami against left-handed pitchers, it just doesn't mix. It's oil and water. It just does not mix whatsoever, which is why hers isn't really a fade by any means. And he's still an option, I think, at his price range. But Wilson, he's right above him just because of the strikeout upside that could be happening because Cincinnati strikes out so much. So hopefully this was able to guide you in the right directions. I know I didn't talk a whole lot about the individual bats that I would have interest in, but it's a lot of muddiness. It's a lot of grossness. But definitely Baltimore is going to be my favorite team on the board. Cincinnati is going to be a really intriguing GPP play, and then Washington for cheap. So good luck in your contest. Thank you for watching. No videos on Sundays as we always do, but we will be back on Monday. See you then.